Oh,
Fuck.
Next
Yes,
question. What rights are most at risk of being lost because we have become lax, and which battles that lie ahead are the most important to pursue in the future? It's a little bit of a loaded question because they're saying we've become lax, but that is the question. Anyone want to tackle this one?
Well, I would like to just start by what Jim Gutstein would say. You know, we've realized that we've lost a lot of rights. We thought we had them, but we also realize now that we didn't have any remedies for our rights. So, as he would say, what's rights without remedies? There's
Can
no
you
rights
elaborate,
at all.
Tom? What do you mean by remedies?
We didn't have any way to look, to kind of look at to see what was happening in the long run. You know, all of a sudden, you know, all of us in every group, in all of us, we're kind of let down our guard, and we just thought things were just hunky dory. That we did have the ADA, we had the Olmstead, but if it's not going to be enforced, then then we don't have any rights. And
Right.
if we're not going to be used, we don't have any rights. You know, we've got to. I mean, it's an ongoing way of how our government works and how we as democracy works. You know, we've got to vote. We've got to put right people in there, and you know, it's up to us. And as David was just got done saying, you know, we can have a chance to change humanity.
Right on. David or Peter, you want to tackle that question about the other piece? What battles that lie ahead are the most important to pursue in the future?
me, please.
Sure.
I would say I keep hearing this phrase that someday we're going to have the new normal.
I keep on hearing this phrase that someday we are going to have a new normal.
There is and never has been a normal.
There is and never has been a normal.
It's like the unicorn never existed.
It's like the unicorn. It never existed.
So, yeah, let's have a revolution.
Yeah, let's have a revolution.
Yep. We got to create our own.
Jim?
Yeah.
Yeah, we got to create our own
I just
infrastructure. You know.
Yep.
What's up, Celia?
Yeah, I want to piggyback on what David and everyone's saying. There's no new normal, and I think we're going to have to have a big tent to include everybody with disabilities, people of color. You know, we have a lot of work to do if we're ever going to be together, and we're all going to be, you know, fighting for freedom and liberation. So I just think that that's important that we, you know, we focus on that. Thanks.
Sure. Okay, next question. How can we, actually, maybe Peter's the best one to answer this one. How can we use this movie? The question went away.
Oh, sorry. I thought we were done with that. I put it in the dismiss thing.
Dismissed.
It's still
okay,
here.
Got it. I see it. Okay. How can we use this movie to inspire and activate others in our communities?
Well, this is one way. We definitely want to promote screenings of the film, especially in communities that don't typically watch these kind of films. So, excuse me. I'm really interested in getting this actually inside institutions, like nursing facilities and IMDs and all those places. And so we are trying to find activist residents in those facilities that could set up screenings that we would help out with. That's one way. The other way is just get out there and do the work. And if this movie is a seed, that's great.
Yeah, what makes this movie so, topical right now is that it shows us how a small group of people can make such a large change. It doesn't have to have a whole a lot of people, except that I would hope that all of our activist organizations could come together also, during this. I think that's one of the, I think it's just the overhaul, let's organize. And I think this film gives you the emotion, the empowerment to do so.
Cool. Okay, how about this question?
Yeah, I would
Sorry,
just
David.
I would just add
one quick thing.
just one quick thing.
During the last showing, we also talked about the new movie Crip Camp.
We talked at the last showing. We talked a little bit about the showing of Crip Camp.
The new
The
movie,
new movie,
Crip Camp.
Crip Camp.
It's on Netflix.
It's on Netflix.
It's only by coincidence.
It's only by coincidence.
But that movie really compliments Peter's.
But that movie really complements Peter's.
And also let us remember that Jim has a great series via MindFreedom of 13-parter on psychiatric is our favorites.
Let's also remember Jim Flannery's series on MindFreedom's psychiatric surviving.
Just go to MindFreedom's website to watch the whole series on YouTube.
Just go to MindFreedom's website and watch the whole series on YouTube.
It's a good series.
Yes, the Voices for Choices series, which features David and Celia and some of Tom's photography. Question for Peter. Question is, what gave Peter the inspiration to produce this documentary, and who helped you with the movie? Oh, you're muted, Peter. It's all good.
Sorry. It started when I was working as a development director at the Protection and Advocacy System in Illinois, which is it's a federally mandated agency that provides legal services to people with disabilities. And I kept hearing about this strange group, ADAPT. This was in the mid-2000s. And they were discussed kind of in a way of like, well, we don't know what to do with them because we're, more mainstream. We work from the inside with with litigation and sitting down with state agencies. And this group just comes in from the outside and just blows everything up. So that intrigued me. So when I finished that job, I went back into film production and made that one of the pet projects. So the people who've helped me is, of course, Tom here, and my partner, Jenny, has been a major support and partner in the project. And then Mark Johnson, who lives in Atlanta and worked at the Shepherd Center. He was our executive producer and really helped connect us to people. So that's sort of who helped and how it started.
Cool. All right. Next one. I don't know. Did I already ask this one? What can psychiatric survivors and their allies draw from this important movement? Did I ask that already?
No.
Okay. Well, there you go. What can psychiatric survivors and their allies draw from this important movement?
I'll just mention one thing. Last few decades, MindFreedom has reached well with the physical disability movement.
MindFreedom within the last decade, as well as the disability movement,
has reached
the
the physical disability movement.
Has reached the physical disability movement.
But there are challenges and problems and complexities.
There's challenges and problems and complexities.
But as we can see in this movie, that spirit of empowerment is crucial.
But as you can see in this movie, the spirit of empowerment is crucial.
It's been years since psych survivors did civil disobedience. We need to restart.
It's been years since psych survivors have done the civil disobedience, and we need to restart that.
Okay, next one. How are people planning to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the ADA this summer? Tom, you want to jump in on that one?
Right. You know, usually when an anniversary comes around like this, I'm on a big bus, Road to Freedom bus, touring all around, and I'm sure there's going to be something. I was going to be touring and ending up in DC as I usually would at the Smithsonian Kennedy Center and whatever is out there. But I'm sure we'll, by the time it rolls around, we'll have something, you know, most likely a Zoom celebration. But I haven't really put any energy into it. It's almost, to me, it's almost like there's a house burning down and I just need to help with the fire brigade. You know, it's, I'm scared that the end of if we don't learn from what is happening right now, this is all going to happen again to all of us. And I'm really worried about our minorities, especially, and all of us. I mean, we have a lot of our people in not only nursing homes and prisons and state hospitals, and they're just dying right now. And so I'm like, right now it's the furthest thing away from my mind, but it's important that we do remember, because that's part of our empowerment comes from our going back in history and praising it or celebrating it. But right now it's buckets. Give me a bucket.
I do know that Michigan is planning an ADA 30 celebration that will be almost entirely virtual. And if anyone's from Michigan, I can look up the information for that. It's a month-long celebration online.
Cool. Next question is for Celia. Celia, you mentioned creating a big tent earlier, and the question came in about asking how you would like to go about creating that big tent.
Okay, we've kind of already started creating the big tent through Surviving Race. We brought everybody together, you know, people with disabilities, psych survivors, advocates, people of color, the LGBTQIA community, so we can all work together to understand the intersections that we have. So no longer that's an African American problem. It's all of us should be involved in that and understanding it, and how can we work together to organize and to you know, eliminate racism and other kind of isms. How do we do it together? We can't just do it alone anymore. We all need each other.
Thanks, Celia. There's been a few questions that have popped in here for you, Peter, about asking about part 2 of the documentary. Can you talk a little bit about part 1, part 2, part 3, and what's happening with the different components of your film?
Sure. Well, part 2 is intended to cover from 1990 through the early, through the early 2000s. So it would cover things like the Olmsted decision. We're skipping over that for now because someone who has most of the ADAPT archives, we need to negotiate purchase of that. So we're still working on that. Part 3 will be contemporary to our filming. It'll be almost entirely our footage when we were with activists for 5 years. And it'll show an inside view of how strategy develops, you know, the community within ADAPT, and then, you know, the actual protests that we filmed. And that I'm hoping will be out this summer. Not before the 8830, but sometime this summer.
All right, right on. Sometime this summer, that's soon. Very cool. Maybe we could do another screening. Okay, so the next question is for the entire panel. So it's a little long, so bear with me. I'll read out the question. It's sort of open-ended. Here's the question. In terms of, oh geez, it bounced. Okay, in terms of nomenclature or naming purposes, and from an educational, psychological, philosophical perspective, the term disability to some people tends to connote negativity and disempowerment. In general, what are some of the thoughts and feelings about this title or term within the community of people with disabilities? And then more to the point, how does the community of people with disabilities wish to be addressed with respect to dignity, honor, and respect? I think, David, you're muted. I think you were starting to speak. Or maybe you weren't and I just put you on the spot. I'm not sure.
I was going to let someone else speak first.
I was going to let somebody else speak first.
Well,
But-
I mean, yeah, no one else is going to. Let me just.
I mean,
Yeah, we're all talking at the same
I
time.
will address that.
I will address that.
We psychiatric survivors have a reputation of rejecting all labels.
Yes, we psychiatric survivors have a reputation of rejecting all labels.
As my late friend Judy said, label jars, not people.
As my late friend Judy said, label jars, not people.
After I fell in 2012, I would have repeated nightmares.
After I fell in 2012, I would have repeated nightmares.
And even when I woke up, the nightmares continued.
And even when I woke up, the nightmares
I
continued.
thought I was falling.
I thought I was falling.
And I can't move once I'm in bed.
And I can't move once I'm in bed.
So, folks, that was PTSD.
That was PTSD.
And when I work with a pro of my choice that ain't a label.
When I work with a pro of my choice, it ain't a label.
It's a tool.
It's a tool.
And I love what the woman said in the movie, our disability becomes our power.
I like what the woman said in the movie, our disability becomes our power.
And by just noting that Greta in the climate movement.
I'll just note also that Greta in the climate movement.
She calls her label of autism her superpower.
She calls her label of autism her superpower.
And she had really severe issues growing up.
And she had some very severe issues growing up.
And I call what we humanity have green disability.
I call what we humans have is green disability.
We are the 100%
And we are the 100%.
Yeah. I guess I would say the term disability, yeah, it's a one that might need to be retired soon, but I'm not sure what would take its place. Another word I think we should really investigate is the word accommodation, which implies that society is making an exception out of their set of normative conditions for people. And so I think the word accommodation is problematic as well. People with disabilities, the people first nomenclature, that's been discussed a lot. A lot of folks would like to have the disability first when they talk about themselves. So it's an interesting question. I haven't seen a satisfactory answer on how to replace disability or anything else like that.
Hi, this is Celia. I think for years we've been trying to change the language, and I've come up to what I think that society is the one that labels us a lot, and I think we need to come up, individually and collectively with our own language. It's, like Peter was saying, some people want people first with disabilities or disabled. So we don't want to all get into a fight about which we have been doing for years, about what kind of language we want to use. I think it's an individual decision, and I would rather fight the battles on oppression, like psychiatric oppression, or people with disabilities living the way that they want to live independently, that it's not them, it's really society.
I agree, Celia. I think that's the fight that we must be right now. And yeah, words are important, but right now, it's the fight for social justice, against oppression right now, and it is so telling right now.
Yeah.
Okay, next question is I like this. It's a very action-oriented question. Comes from Dora. She says, "Hi, my name is Dora. I'm a mom who's blind. What are some resources that can help me talk with some people with disabilities in my community so that we can be more active in this movement?" It's open-ended to anyone on the panel.
You might want to try reaching out to your centers for independent living to see what resources they can provide for communication assistance. There's also isn't the lighthouse in every city pretty much?
But no,
yes, it is. Yeah.
I think, Peter was talking about the independent living centers, and there are a lot of them around February. What's nice about their programs is that the place itself has to be more than 50% persons with disabilities, and not all of them are the same. So if you do find one in your neck of the woods, it's a good resource, but I would also find out what other ones are around and ask them the same question, because you'll probably get another answer. You might get a better answer. But they tend to have the most diverse disability information in one place.
I would encourage cross-disability organizing.
I would encourage cross-disability organizing.
And one place I found helpful is every month NCIL has a teleconference.
And once a month, NCIL has a teleconference.
That's a National Council on Independent Living.
At the National Council on Independent Living.
So in terms of mental health, working with all the disabilities, I think it's the main network.
As far as mental and physical disabilities, it's a main network.
Yeah, you can email me for more information. Revolution at ACIU.
You can email me at at Revolution.
Email me, Care of MindFreedom.
Or Care of MindFreedom.
And yeah. By the way, Sunday, Mad in America will publish my blog, but psych survivors working with physical disability.
So on Sunday, Mad in America will publish my blog about psych survivors dealing with physical disabilities.
They could give us logs on.
Thank you.
Okay, next one is from Alice. It says, I have been researching the movement for over 8 years so that I can write books for children about it, as there are few books written on the topic. I would appreciate your thoughts about topics. I could do the 504 sit-in, the bus work, or a compilation about the people. What would you all suggest?
Greta.
Greta.
Greta. Greta.
Greta.
One of the main world leaders. One of us.
One of the main world leaders. One of us, and definitely in the youth.
Well, you know, there's a children's book now out about the Capitol crawl that Tom knows more about. Do you want to say something about that, Tom? Or?
I was going to, but I couldn't remember the name of the book.
Yeah, I know.
Just a second, I actually realized I have it. Yeah, there's a children's book. It's called All the Way to the Top. And it's actually, whoop, there, you can see it right there, all the way to the top. It's by Annette Bay Pimentel. But it's a great activist story about a young child that happens to be my niece that was an adapt, and she happened to be one of the, well, yeah, if you saw the movie, you saw her crawl up the steps. And that might give you some really great ideas of what you can do and taking parts of different history. The 50, I mean, that was nice because it's a child was in it. And we've had kids within the ADAPT family always. Now it's kind of interesting. Some of the early ones are now in, graduate from colleges and have kids themselves. And their kids are in the movement. Go for it. Go. I mean, I think kids' books are a fantastic way to keep the movement going.
Okay, next question I see is for Celia. Celia, the question is, can you post information or a link to Surviving Race so folks have it and know how or where to participate? Maybe you could put a link in the chat or just give an idea of how they could find out about it.
Yeah, I could put a link in the chat. We're on Facebook. We have a Facebook page, so we post there. Sure, I'll do that now. Thanks.
Cool. Next question is, how can small grassroots organizations be ADA compliant with very little funding?
What do you mean by, well, let me see. You're not the one to answer. It's not hard at all. I mean, just find out, it's not something, it's a very fluid way. I mean, the thing is, you know, you definitely don't want to be in a place, an organization that you can't get in. So the egress in and really to a restroom is the most important thing that you can have. But you can get around, I mean, you know, that's a hard one to answer. And I mean, it's so easy. You just have to have a good faith, mostly, and you can then you can just figure it out by where it's going. There's an ADA ADA 800 numbers. You know, throughout the U.S., you can get a hold of people and ask them questions about compliance.
Mm-hmm. Also, a lot of the CILs actually house ADAPT chapters, and in Chicago, the local Center for Independent Living provides the space for free. The chapter does have to pay for captioning if there's someone who wants captioning during the meeting, or ASL interpretation. But we've also gotten grants from local foundations that support grassroots organizations that aren't necessarily 501c3s.
Okay. Next question is, and again, this one's an open one for anyone on the panel. How does the disabilities rights movement intersect with other movements for social change?
Well, one of the things about the movement that you just got done seeing is that you can probably had seen pictures. I mean, we have blind, we have the deaf, we have psychiatric survivors. We run the gamut, and so in other groups, in other, you know, you're going to find other disabilities also. It's not just, you know, one group. You know, in the blind groups, you have people in chairs. They intersect a lot in the movements. I mean, I right now with the pandemic, I have more. I feel more connected with the activist group during the AIDS pandemic. You know, with them ACT UP. You know, there's a great crossover there. I'm gay myself. I feel that, you know, there's a lot in this in the movements. It's dealing, you know, you're dealing with oppression, and that comes in many different forms, and it comes in different religions. It comes in ethnicities. You know, it's, when we're talking about disability, it connects with so many other groups. And I love it because there's it's the most diverse area, you know, that you can get in when you're trying for change.
I'll just say that when I started this work in 1976,
I'll just say when I started this work in 1976,
our perspective was that there was one big movement.
Our perspective was that there was one big movement.
Yeah, we work with like prisoner justice
We worked with like prisoner justice.
and you name the issue.
You named the issue.
But really, there's one big movement.
But really, there is one big movement.
And again, we talk a lot about empowerment.
And we talk a lot about empowerment.
But Peter's movie shows empowerment in real life.
But Peter's movie shows empowerment in real life.
And I feel our movement needs to be more active in the whole world's movement.
I think our movement needs to be more active, as well as like for the whole world, it needs to be more active.
Right. I mean, we've had to rely on government money for most of our groups.
We've had to rely on government money for most of our groups.
And I understand it because our folks tend to be poor.
And I understand it because most of our people tend to be poor.
But depth and mind freedom are very similar in that both work for independence.
Mind freedom and adapt are very similar in the fact that they both work for independence.
So I think that kind of independence needs to be encouraged.
So I think that kind of independence needs to be encouraged.
So our center of gravity is not just the next grant.
So our center of gravity isn't just the next grant.
Like our independent living center, the director said, like, made some really negative claims.
So our independent living center made some really negative claims.
We need to focus on unity, not just the next government grant.
We need to focus on unity, not just the next government grant. I think unity is important.
Well, I want to thank everyone. This is a very inspiring screening of Piss on Pity. And I think we had a wonderful conversation. I think we have to have more of these conversations. So thank you all so much for taking time to be on the Mind Freedom Piss on Pity. Yes, David.
I would love
to
ask Patrick with some wonderful signing to slowly say Mind Freedom Nassau.
Great.
Yeah. Thank you, David, Peter, and Tom.
Thank you.
And all of the participants, attendees. This is really great. And I think I'm going to try to get the Piss on Pity. I think this is important documentary to show in my community. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. This is great.
Thank you.
Thank you.